Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name is Sarah Shook, and I am a UI UX engineer at Hunter Industries. And I love CSS. It's fun. I like to try to do as much things with CSS without JavaScript. And so while I'm technically on the JavaScript track here, the only thing we're going to be using JavaScript today for is a click event. So everything else is going to be CSS. It is not off, but maybe it's not close enough. Okay, hello. Can we hear? Or I could just hold it. No, I need my hands. Okay, how many of you have ever felt personally victimized by CSS? So CSS can be sometimes complex, especially when you start getting to the 3D side of things. And so today we will cover CSS. We're going to go over the transform property just in general briefly in case you're not super familiar with that. And then we'll go into some 3D CSS properties and how to get the 3D CSS working and doing some fun things for you without JavaScript. We'll talk about perspective, a property called backface visibility, transforms, style, preserve 3D, translate Z, rotate 3D, and scale 3D. So we're going to briefly touch on those, and then I'll show you how to make a flippable card, and then we'll talk about ensuring accessibility as you're building out these 3D components, and then we'll go over some gotchas and for the GPU, and just kind of things to know as you're building, whether it's with CSS animations or 3D CSS. So we're going to start with we're going to start with my code pens. All right, so right now I have these, oh, why isn't it showing that? Sorry, y'all. Escape. There we go. All right, so we're going to start with these code pens. And so we just have two very basic boxes. We have our turquoise box and our pink box. And we're going to just kind of compare and contrast some of the different things that can happen whenever you're talking about transforms. So my blue box here is going to be not 3D right now. And so we're going to start with scale. So scale, as it sounds like, it's going to scale our box. Oh, that's not the right one. Hold on, y'all. Sorry. Oh, I'm going to have technical difficulties for a second. One moment. Sure. Yes, ma'am. How do I zoom on here? Let's see. Control plus, right? Well, we'll do it that way. All right, that's okay. Perfect. All right. We'll start with it. So we've just got our two boxes, right? We have a wrapper here just to put in the flip. And then we have our box 1, which is the turquoise, and then the box Z, which is going to be the 3D. All right, so why my box Z is not doing what I want, I'm not sure. My box 1, I don't know, because my internet has been flaky here. Perfect. All right. So as we can see, box 1 is scaling now correctly, and it's scaling up to 150%. Just center, the transform origin is center for this, so it's just scaling exactly straight in front of us. And so then we talk about translate Z. And so when you're talking about 3D CSS and just translations in general, there's translate X, which is going to be horizontal, correct? And then translate Y will be up and down. And then you have your translate Z, which puts it on the Z axis. And so when we translate Z, what you're going to find is it does not come out straight like our scale does. So they look very similar in behavior, except for one is coming out a little bit more 3D. And so in order to do that, we have to give our parent element a perspective. And when you come and you give the parent element a perspective, it makes a 3D scene. So you're looking at a scene now, and you can adjust that perspective. So 500 pixels is how far away it is to us right now. And then whenever we hover it, it's now showing that perspective of 500 px in that 3D plane. If we change that perspective a little bit, we can go to 200, and hopefully this saves. Yep, it saves and it goes way off the screen because our perspective is so much closer. And so with these things that I'm showing you, I'm giving, pixels. You play around with these for your perspective and because the size of your boxes matter. And then I also zoomed in on here, so it's a little bit off for me as well. So anyway, so we've got that. And so that's the scale, and it's bringing it out. But then when we start talking about translating them into 3D. So we first have translate 3D, 100px, 100px, and 0. So what this means is it's translating 100px, x, so 100px to the right, 100px, I think it's, let's see, 100px, sorry. I'm having to use my mobile hotspot because the internet did not want me to use this here. So it does work whenever it reloads. I shouldn't have done this on CodePen, I guess. We'll reload. All right, there we go. All right, so 100px to the right, 100px down, but it's not, the 0 there is the z-axis, and so it's not giving us any z-axis translation. And then now, if we go to our pink box, we're going to have to probably refresh a second. Reload. There we go. All right, so now we've got 100px, 100px, but now it's scaling out 100px as well, or translating out in the x-axis. Then we have rotations, and I'm gonna have to go back in just a little bit so that I can show you easier. Okay, so rotation. Sorry guys, I did not expect to have these technical issues. It worked just a few minutes ago. It's not the CSS, it's the internet. All right, there we go. So now with our box, we're going to translate 3D. We're not doing rotate like it was supposed to. That's okay. We'll fix it now. Thanks for bearing with me. All right, so now we're rotating one full circle. So with rotate 3D, we're doing, there's a vector of 3. The 1 is going to be rotating it on the x-axis. The first 0 is rotating it on the y-axis, and then the third is how many degrees. So we're just doing a full circle. And as you can see, it's rotating there. And then if we do it on this one, if it's going to work, oh my goodness. Hold on one moment. Never mind. I don't know where my phone went. I think that's where this issue's coming from. You've got my phone. Oh, maybe that'll work now. Thanks, Ryan. All right, so we'll try again. Rotate. There we go. So now it's rotating the correct way. But whenever you start bringing in the Z transition, whenever it comes to rotating, it kind of starts acting a little bit funky because the way that the Z axis works is it works in a different plane. And so whenever you're rotating and doing things in the 3D plane with the Z axis, you have to be careful and really figure out the best way to do it. And so I don't normally tell people to use ChatGPT or AI to learn the concepts, but when it comes to integrating the Z-axis, that sometimes is very helpful because it can figure out the math, but at least for me, better than I can. So because I'm having so much issue with this side, we're just gonna go ahead and go to the card demo because I can do that. So, does pineapple belong on pizza is our card, and Before you say no, I want you to remember in the keynote today, Aaron Francis said that it's not a good thing to be somebody who hates something and be known for that. So, and if you haven't tried it, you're not allowed to say no. All right, so with this, hopefully this will work. It's already built out, but we have our wrapper class again. Then we have our button, because we're using a button here, and we're gonna have our 3D card for the button wrapper. And because we wanna make sure that this is accessible, we're going to do some ARIA updating with our JavaScript click event. And so like I said, the only thing with JavaScript here is the click event, and I'll go ahead and show that here. So we're querying the card, finding the card by its class, and then based on if the card's value is pressed, then we're gonna flip the card and change those ARIA values for the accessibility, and we'll flip-flop between the ARIA hidden on the front and the back of the card. So we have two card faces. I'm gonna hide this now. All right, we just have our wrapper stuff here, and then we have our 3D card. So what we do on the 3D card is we give it a relative position. We go ahead and we have a perspective of 500 pixels, which hopefully will work well now that I'm still zoomed in here. And then we have our card faces. And the card faces are positioned absolutely on top of each other so that we can hide them and show them. And so within these properties, we've got a lot of just the style. So we're displaying it flex, we're displaying it on a column format. The text is aligned in the center. But then we have this property here, which I mentioned earlier, and it's the back face visibility. And so I'll show you what that does after I show how the card works in a second. So we have our back face visibility hidden. We have our transition set. And because this is a button, we make sure that the background is transparent so that we can flip it and you don't see any of the button or initial styles. And then we just have some basic styles for this. And then with our colors and our backgrounds, and then with the actual 3D card itself, we're gonna translate and transform, rotate them, depending on if they're flipped or not, okay? So it works. Did not have any issues with that. So 100% yes. As you can see, you cannot see the back of the card or the front of the card now that it's here. And it just goes back and forth, okay? If we did not have that back face visibility, now fingers crossed that this actually works correctly, fastly this time. All right, so if we take this now, and save. I might have to come back to that, but I'll show you if it takes a minute. So if we did not have this, if I did not have tech issues right now, what you would actually see is that the back and the front, you would be able to see both of them. So the back face visibility says, hey, this is a 3D animation. We want to hide what's behind us that's going to be transformed so that you can't see the back and the front, okay? Since I'm having so many tech issues, we're going to move on to the gotchas. And I apologize for all the tech issues today. So from current slide. All right, so whenever it comes to transforming and transitioning animations, there's what's called a rendering pipeline. And so that is going to tell you what is going to take the most energy or the most computation value and go. So so there's the layout, which is when you calculate things like the width, the height, the margin, the top position, the left position. When you transition or transform properties with those types of properties, it's going to adjust the entire layout. It's going to be very expensive computationally. So you try not to adjust the layout. We use transitions and transforms instead of adjusting top left. So like I showed you earlier, you translate X and translate Y, which moves those elements, but does not affect their width and their height. They stay contained within their parent technically, and they just move visually. So it doesn't recalculate the layout whenever you don't transition width, height, margin, top, etc. Then we have paint. And so paint is when it's going to be drawing the pixels. So background colors, box shadows, borders. So if you have like a heavy background image that you're using and it's like, full of flowers, and you translate that and you transform it and you're making it move back and forth, that's going to be expensive as well because you're repainting that picture and all of those pixels every single time you move that element. And on smaller elements like buttons, things like that, it's okay to repaint usually. But when you're talking about having an entire background of your website moving back and forth, and it's not a video component, and it's redrawing it with transition and transform, that also is very expensive, and it can end up slowing your site down. And then you have what's called the composite pipeline, and that is when you are transitioning the least expensive. So that's transform, like we talked about, transform, and then you're translating it, or you're transforming the opacity. You are not repainting all of those pixels for each time that the frame is updated. So whenever you can, you should stick with the composite updates so that your transitions are smooth, and they're the most efficient. There's also a property that I don't have listed here called will change, and that is a property that can help if you have an expensive animation that you're going to be using, because it tells the browser, hey, this animation is going to happen and I need you to expect it to happen. But if that property is used a lot, then it also is very resource intensive. So it's best to try to avoid that when possible. All right, we kind of went over some of this. So gotchas, again, using transform and translate instead of top and left positioning. So always using those composite properties to move things around on your animations. When you directly animate things like box shadows, instead of actually animating under your element, you should create, if possible, absolutely positioned elements under your parent element, and then animate those instead, so it's less resource intensive. Again, I've already said this, but background animations are best on small elements like buttons versus things like backgrounds, because you could have millions of pixels that get repainted every single time you switch frames. And again, when sticking to animating backgrounds, use simple backgrounds versus complex patterns. And then I'll see real quick if my thing worked. I don't think it did, though. It's very disappointing. But that's really it. So I'm happy to answer questions. So sorry I'm caught off guard. I was not expecting internet issues right now. But CSS animations, even though they seem challenging, there we go. All right, there's the back face visibility right here. So because back face visibility is hidden, you can't see the original initial card up there. All right, so I apologize for the tech issues today. I was not expecting them. Any questions? Yeah. Yes, so I know that like Internet Explorer 6 does not work with this, but the examples I gave should work on most browsers. I will say that when I do CSS transitions and animations, not with these examples, but I find that Safari is the one that is the most complex to deal with, and I always have to figure out, why. But I don't have a specific example on the top of my head, but I've definitely had it happen. Yes, yeah, and there's the WebKit OS. Yes, there are the polyfills. I did not include them in this, but yes, I would do polyfills if I needed to. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yes. Yes, and actually that's usually what I use is Tailwind CSS. So this is all vanilla CSS. I guess it is CSS, but I usually, yes, use Tailwind. And then what I normally do if I'm doing something really complex, you can like create custom classes and custom animations in Tailwind, and I do that sometimes. But when it's like a one-off, I really want to see the actual CSS and what I'm doing. So I'll usually create like classes to add to like the CSS itself and write it all out instead of doing it on like my Tailwind config file, or I know we're in Tailwind 4 now, but I have not migrated to that quite yet. So.
You talk about the technical thing here, but like from an aesthetic and kind of your design sense, how do you balance animations and the joy that they bring versus making things like
Yeah, for sure. So my favorite, I obviously went with kind of a more in-your-face type of animation for this because it was easier, would have been way easier if I could show you everything right away. But I think that the beauty about animations is really being able to create subtle updates and subtle animations that draws a user's eye to like a button or, you know, something that you want them to see, and you want them to like get excited that they submitted something. So like I love doing, I usually will mix state within my like button elements, for example, and I will have like, if I'm waiting for an API call, for example, I'll have a pending state for this button, and it'll have maybe a little loading icon on it. And then once the data is in and I have that success, then I'll change it to success, you know. So it's very small changes. Maybe it just changes the color, maybe it adds an icon, but something subtle that still draws the user and gives them that satisfaction that the action that they've taken is completed or they're waiting for it to be done. Yeah. Yes? I love that question, and I will be the first person to tell you I really love accessibility, and I am on a very small team, and it's not always the first forefront on the team that I'm on because we're just there's only a couple of us, and so I do utilize ChatGPT a lot for ARIA. I feel like it's a very stable thing to ask it. And then when I have my additional time, I'll research otherwise. But as long as I can get something in and then I can build onto that when I have more time, just trying to at least make sure it's implemented as best as I can right then and then go back and study and then re-implement things later. And then when you're building components, right, like you're going to reuse them. So once you have it, it's not like you're having to do that for every single component. You have it in your base component, and then that gets inherited, you know, whenever you're using it throughout your project.
So that is truly like an ARIA label.
Yeah, and I had an ARIA label here. Yep, flip card to see the answer here. So, yeah. Yes, you're right. And I did not touch keyboard navigation here. That was not the scope of this one, but I do agree for sure. Yep. I'm going to see if it works now. Any other questions? I have been personally victimized by the internet on my phone today. Yeah.
Now that we know about the answer to that question, what about kiwi?
Oh, you know what? I think it would be great. Same with mango.
Or should
Well, that's all I've got, y'all. I'm so sorry again for the technical issues. But I will make these public on my CodePen, and then y'all can see them and play around with them and play around with the different properties. And then, let me share my Connect thing, because if you want to reach out to me with questions specific, I'm Shook Codes like everywhere, but there's my LinkedIn if you want to connect there. And I'm always happy to answer questions. And if I don't know the answer, I'll let you know. I'm really mad that everything wasn't updating it right away, but